Biomass is biological material derived from living or recently living organisms. The following characteristics are true of all biomass. It must be burned to derive energy. The source material must be grown, harvested, processed, transported, distributed, and stored. The consumer must have a dedicated appliance, and a certain amount of manual labor is required to load and clean the apparatus. Available sources include wood chips, wood pellets, cordwood, grass pellets, and corn. The biomass market has the potential to provide residents access to affordable local resources, especially during a time when oil prices continue to rise. According to Ken Lofton of the Maine Forest Service, of the 7 million tons of pellet quality biomass material available in Maine, 4.4 million could be useful for home heating. Using biomass as a heating source in Aroostook County is not new. Families in Maine used wood to heat their homes long before the current heavy reliance on oil. Our story addresses the viability of biomass as a heating source in Aroostook County today. Consumers can take varied approaches to using biomass as fuel, depending on their needs. Wood stoves, pellet stoves, and inserts that allow multiple fuel types to be burned are available as both supplemental and primary heating sources for homes. Wood chip and multiple fuel furnaces are options for schools, businesses, and industrial applications. Each type of appliance has different logistical considerations. This business burns pellets.
This is the hopper that has the pellets.
Oh.
We can put 1.5 tons of pellets. We just drop them from the top floor and load it up.
This homeowner uses a wood gasification system.
Naturally, you need the space to be able to cord your firewood. It's a commitment because you're having to maintain the wood boiler by continually feeding it, and then you also have to periodically clean it, remove your ash, and dispose of it. And then also you get increased mold and humidity in your home.
During the coldest periods, biomass appliances must be loaded more frequently. This may be a deterrent for consumers, especially those with limited physical capabilities. How is oil heat different?
You set your thermostat and you get routine deliveries with a fuel truck.
What are some issues heating with pellets?
If you want to go to a place that does not deliver, then you either have to have a trailer, you have to have a pickup that will handle a ton in the back of it.
How about cleaning the stove?
It's not like you can fill it up and just leave it for 3 or 4 days.
What kinds of materials can be used to manufacture pellets?
Just about any agricultural residual, any forest residual, so that includes bark, whitewood, sawdust, shavings, corn stover, hay, seed shells. All those have been used as fuel.
Pellet manufacturer Matt Bell discusses his experimental pellet initiatives.
We've experimented with different types of grasses, hays, grains, canola, and we've done red cedar from the Virginias, and we've also done some testing with eucalyptus.
Are there problems with grass pellets?
The BTUs are not there, the economics don't make sense, and there's much higher ash and more corrosive.
Scientists and manufacturers don't always agree.
Wood and other plant material tend to have very similar BT values.
Why haven't grass pellets emerged as a potential local market?
From the research that I've done, looking at other countries and continents that are currently producing grass, they're doing it more as a last resort because they do not have the wood fiber available.
The technology to burn grass pellets, I don't think is there now.
Does the technology exist in other markets?
The grass pellets or straw pellets have been burned in Europe for over 30 years, and so it's not like it's a major technical challenge. It's just you need the right appliances to do it effectively.
More diverse fuel choices. More convenient appliances and storage systems will be necessary to increase local adoption of biomass as heating fuel. Manufacturers and scientists need to continue to work together to develop technologies that produce economically viable and environmentally sustainable fuel sources that are convenient, safe, and inexpensive for consumers. Biomass as a dominant heating source in Aroostook County would provide the county with the opportunity to reduce its dependence on oil. But does wood biomass really have a zero carbon footprint?
There's no such thing as a zero carbon footprint. Everything is going to cost us something. And the idea that, well, if I grow a tree, I cut it down and I burn it, and another tree will grow in its place, and I'm simply cycling that carbon, doesn't take into account the chainsaw that was used to cut it down, the truck that was used to transport it.
Grass biomass has not yet been established as a fuel in Aroostook County. What are some energy considerations for farmers interested in pursuing grass crops for fuel?
To establish your grass, it would take a fair amount of fuel to plow the land and fertilize it and get it ready to produce grass. But after the grass is established, it's not really a high fuel consumption crop.
Farmers also need to take grass species into account.
Well, reed canary grass is already here, so it is a native species in this area. The switchgrass isn't. In terms of invasive species, if you're choosing between the two, it would be switchgrass that would qualify more than invasive species.
Why are invasive grasses an environmental issue?
Both of these grasses can spread what you'd say vegetatively. Now they can also produce seeds, and those seeds can be spread as well, so it's kind of like a double whammy.
Are there other environmental considerations? Are chemicals a concern when biomass is burned?
The things that really jumped out as being interesting were we also found arsenic, cadmium, and lead. There are a number of heavy metals in ash. None of this was surprising. This was all known for decades.
Should consumers be concerned about exposure to ash?
The only real significant exposure that people seem to get is when they open that door and decide, now it's time to clean the stove, and they start flipping that ash around.
According to Ken Lawson of the Maine Forest Service, there are 14 million acres of timber harvested annually in the state of Maine. In the 1980s, none of the timber harvest was utilized for biomass. Now 23% is used. Trees are a renewable source, but they take up to 40 years to regenerate. Deforestation could be a risk.
We just can't go cut down every tree there is and turn it into pellets. When it started, pellets was all recycled sawdust.
According to Lawson, current managing practices use varying techniques to help maintain viable forests. Biomass, whether produced from wood or agricultural byproducts, is still better for the environment than oil.
If you compare it to oil or coal, well, in oil and coal, what you're doing is you're releasing fossilized carbon that would have taken millions of years to move into the system.
Adopting biomass heat sources could help Aroostook County lower its carbon footprint and mitigate climate change in an economically sustainable and environmentally responsible fashion. Aroostook County residents depend largely on oil, which is once again approaching record prices. At the present rate, heating oil expenses consume almost 10% of household median income, which in Aroostook County is over $15,000 lower than the national average.
On the average, we were spending roughly $211,000 in fuel oil.
After switching to biomass, how much will you spend?
Somewhere around $102,000 is what we're going to spend this year.
Well, we can't see that oil is going to be going down in price over the next several years, so figured we'd supplement it with wood and cut down the price a little bit.
The adoption of biomass should be considered as an alternative heating source because of abundant local access. This graph illustrates potential savings based on 2011 and 2012 heating costs. For 800 gallons of heating oil, consumers spent over $3,100. For the same amount of generated heat, wood pellets cost around $1,600 and cordwood cost just the $1,100.
I experienced at least a third in cost savings on my heating oil bill.
We don't burn more than 2.5 tons pellets, maybe 3 under the cold winter. So $200 a ton, we're back at $600, and we just had the oil fills, and it was maybe just below a half. It was $580.
The use of biomass for heat provides cost savings. There are insurance considerations.
Most insurance companies want you to have a separate chimney for each heating source.
Can a consumer who heats with biomass alone get insured?
So the answer to that is yes, it can happen, but your premiums will be very expensive.
How much more expensive?
You're talking about probably triple your pricing.
Consumers must be wary of adopting only one source of biomass to heat their homes.
So as the price of corn started going up, it kind of killed our market.
Diversification does present challenges for consumers.
Yes, it would be nice to have a multi-fuel approach to solve our problems, because that ensures us of a stream of resources that wouldn't necessarily deplete one over the other. The problem we're having, though, is that the cost factor is pretty significant.
Even if the cost of multi-fuel appliances could be reduced, consumers would still face problems with accessibility to diverse biomass sources. Currently, only wood is used. Are local farmers interested in pursuing grass production for pelletization?
There'd be an interest in anything I say they could make a little bit of profit at.
We're always looking for crops that pay. There's a lot of pros and cons in making this decision. But as far as if I would be interested in pursuing this, yep, I would.
What are some cost considerations?
There might be a market for pellets for your grass to make pellets, but you got to go out and buy all sorts of machinery.
The cost of energy right now is through the roof. The cost of fertilizer is what's, that's our major expense now. So anything would help.
We face the declining forest products industry, the availability of fiber, the harvesting crews are not out there like they have been in the years past. Electricity is a huge factor for us, especially given that Aroostook County is not connected to the rest of the ISO New England grid. So energy costs are very high, and then transportation is also another costly barrier.
Though locally produced pellets may cost consumers slightly more, there are clear benefits.
We purchase all of our fiber, or the majority of our fiber, right in Aroostook County. We have our employees are local. We use local machine shops to make our parts and wear items. And we also have our bags and pallets, and all of our packaging goods are made locally, right in Presque Isle. And for every dollar that is spent on pellets in the state of Maine from one of the main manufacturers, that we figure that somewhere around 95% of the dollar stays, as opposed to oil where 80% of the dollar leaves.
Keeping Maine dollars in the state is a great reason to support wider adoption of biomass as a primary heating source in Aroostook County. But it is not the only reason. Environmental, economic, and logistical factors all point to a future where more biomass and less oil is used to heat our homes. But conversion costs, insurance concerns, and underdeveloped technology are all hurdles Aroostook County residents must overcome. We cannot do it alone. Both our state and local governments need to pass legislation, provide financial incentives, and develop infrastructure to assist homeowners with the conversion process and put us on the path to achieving economic and environmental sustainability.